Hello, everyone, and welcome back to a new episode, part of the Microsoft Sentinel in the Field series. As always, I have my great colleague with me, Javier. Hey, Javier.
Hello, Chris. So today we're going to talk about all the capabilities that Sentinel has around threat intelligence. And for that, we have Rijuta Kapoor from the Sentinel engineering team. Welcome, Rijuta.
Thank you so much, Chris and Javier, for inviting me to the show.
You bet. So, Rijuta, before we dive deeper into the different threat intelligence features, can you explain to our audience here what is threat intelligence and what is the vital role that it plays within a SIM and also within a SOC as well?
Absolutely. So cyber threat intelligence, essentially in a layman language, is anything that helps you protect your organization against actors, threats in the world. When we talk about cyber threat intelligence, it's of various forms. It can be anything starting from, an IP, a URL, a domain, which is a form of an observable, to, obviously reports which contain information about actors and campaigns and whatnot. I generally like to classify threat intelligence in kind of three buckets, which is, tactical, strategic, and operational TI. As I mentioned earlier, tactical TI is like the most rudimentary form of TI, most basic form of TI, but the most powerful one for a SIM, which is, observables like IPs, domains, file hashes, etc., that you can match with your event data inside a SIM solution. And then comes in strategic and operational TI, which is more in terms of TTPs and actors and what their motivations are, what industries are they trying to kind of target, etc. So those are all the forms of TI. And answering your question about how is it important for a SOC, we all know SOC has limited resources and the number of threats are on a complete rise at any point in time in the world, especially where we are living today. So TI is one of those things that really helps organizations prioritize their incidents in understanding easily which incidents have the most value, which need to be looked upon right away. When a SOC analyst logs into a SIM early in the morning, I know they look at like a lot of incidents, but prioritization is the core here. So I think that's really important for any SOC, and TI is a game changer there.
Very good, Rijuta. Thank you. So what are the different integration points that Sentinel provides to ingest, manage, and use threat intelligence in general?
Absolutely. I am going to quickly share my screen so that we can actually look at all this cool stuff that we're trying to build within Sentinel.
Let's go. Definitely.
So the first thing in the TI journey is obviously we need to import threat intelligence data into the product. And when I say that, there are various integration points to bring in TI. It starts all the way from, data connectors to file imports and so forth. So let's first look at some data connectors. We have essentially two data connectors in the product. One is called the Threat Intelligence Taxi Connector. This connector is essentially a taxi client built to connect to any Taxi 2.0 or 2.1 server and bring in TI. For folks who don't know what taxi is, there's an organization called OSIS who's built out a schema called STIX, which tells how you define your TI, and taxi is the protocol for sharing threat intelligence. And there is another data connector called the Threat Intelligence Platforms Connector, which is right here. This is based on a proprietary Microsoft solution called the Graph Security API. It allows you to ingest TI from sources, from vendors which don't support STIX taxi. Folks like Palo Alto MindMeld or MISP, etc. are our partners here. So how it works is you throw in your TI from your tip sources into your Graph Security API, and then it makes into Sentinel. So these are kind of the ways by which you can import TI. One other and the most recently worked feature for us is the file import feature. As I said, a lot of data connectors are used to bring in TI from regular vendors and sources. But the truth here is a lot of TI sharing still happens over Teams channels, flat files, Skype, Slack channels, etc., where one analyst shares a file of TI or a list of TI indicators to another analyst. In that case, using data connectors really is cumbersome. So what we do here is we created a feature called import from file, which allows you to import TI from a CSV and a JSON file, and allows you to upload the file, import the indicators, and make it into Sentinel. So kind of these are all the ways by which TI makes it into the product. Javier, does that cover everything that you were looking for in terms of bringing in TI into the product?
Absolutely, yes. Thanks. One question that I have is, once I have that TI, those IOCs in Sentinel in this view, can I edit those indicators?
Great question, and I was actually going to walk everybody through that right now. So now that we've brought in all this good TI into the product, you want to view it, right? And as Javier mentioned, this is a great GUI-based view that we've developed, where you can kind of search your TI, you can filter it on a certain basis. And to Javier's question, you can even edit your TI. So for example, I want to edit the TI here. Right now, you're seeing its confidence is 100. I'm going to bring it down, for example, and set the confidence to a different number. For example, I set it to 29. Obviously, it moved lower in the list, but we did see that it got updated to 29. So these are some of the ways by which you can edit your indicators. You can even delete your indicators. And one of the most powerful tools is tagging, right? We do allow tagging of indicators, and it's a free form tag. So it's on the basis of your nomenclature that you develop in your organization. Folks use it to link it back to incidents. So I'll just say incident ID 1234. Maybe this indicator came from an incident. You will see here that the indicator got updated pretty quickly. You can add things like whether it's a botnet or a C2. You can link it to different MITRE attack kill chains and things like that. So various organizations use tagging differently.
Yep. So Rijuta, actually, quick question. So after somebody brings in that threat intel, what type of analytics or rules are they able to ignite? And do we have any sort of, feed from Microsoft threat intel feed as well?
Absolutely. Great question again, Chris. So yes, we do have analytics, and that's, the most important piece. Sure, we can bring in as many indicators we want into Sentinel, but the crux is that we want to match it against our event logs to get the most out of it, right? And understand if we are under attack. So what we have done within Sentinel is we have actually provided a couple of analytic rules. It's a set of 27 analytic rules. And these analytic rules all start with the keyword TI map. So you'll see I search for the keyword TI map and all my analytic rules show up right here. And what these rules are KQL based rules that run off the threat intelligence indicators table of log analytics. And they match your TI with different log types. So as an example for this one, it takes every single IP indicator that we have imported into Sentinel and matches it against firewall logs. Similarly, for this one, it takes every file hash indicator and match it against common security or Ceph logs. So these are very, very powerful tools to, right away get value out of these analytics. There is nothing you will have to do, just kind of enable them. Obviously, since these are KQL based, if you need to do any type of customization, you can go ahead and customize these as well. So these kind of provide any SOC team to get a head start once they have TI into the product. And coming back to your question around Microsoft TI, yes, we do provide Microsoft TI into the product by a way called the Microsoft Threat Intelligence Analytics. And this analytic rule is essentially what it does is it is a black box rule. You cannot control the TI that is used in this. But what we do essentially with this is a very, very high fidelity analytic rule and uses very high fidelity TI. And when I say that, what essentially it does is it takes TI that we have in Microsoft, which, people say is one of the best in the world. We take all that powerful TI that our lovely analysts produce and we are observing. We take all that TI and match it against your logs, essentially. Obviously, I have it active in this, so let me actually go to my active rules and go say edit. Essentially, you can only turn on and off this rule. And once you do that, we will start matching your logs with RTI. So the advantage of this, Chris, really is that we do not go and give you like a full-blown feed of like a zillion indicators. But
Right.
what we do essentially here is every time we see a match, we give you that matched indicator so that while your analysts are kind of triaging through these incidents, it's easy for them to understand what we know about this entity essentially within TI. And one more thing that we really do is we raise the incidents in a really prioritized manner. So for example, if we match against your firewall logs and it's an allowed traffic to a known malicious domain or an IP, we'll raise a high severity alert versus if it's a blocked traffic, we'll raise a low severity alert. So it really helps your SOC prioritize and know which incidents really need their attention right away. And to your point, we recently launched the Microsoft Defender Threat Intelligence product, which is MDTI, or the new branded Microsoft name of Risk IQ. And we use TI from MDTI as well in this analytic rule. So,
Awesome.
And that does not even require you to be an MDTI customer.
That's
so
great.
if you are a Sentinel customer, you will get the value of Microsoft Defender Threat Intelligence right out of the gate.
Rijuta, one question. On what data types do we have this rule working right now?
Absolutely, great question. So that is kind of a journey we are on. As of date, we match against Ceph, DNS, and syslog. These are the three log sources we're already matching with. But as I said, we are on a multi-year journey right now with this, and we are going to continue investing in this area and expand not just the log sources, but also the TI sources that we are already matching with.
Excellent. So Rijuta, can you tell us about how TI surfaces in the incident management? Because I heard some news recently about that.
Absolutely. Yes, great question. So, as we said, TI is one of those areas which we kind of try to surface everywhere in the product. TI is sprinkled everywhere. So one of the areas where we are really investing in is helping our analysts reduce context switching while they are doing investigation. And this is going to help reduce your mean time to respond. And one of the first steps we've taken in this area is in the investigation graph. We all know investigation graph is a very, very powerful tool that allows you to get like a bird's eye view of how your entities are mapped to each other, how all of them come together in an incident. And while an analyst is investigating the incident, Javier, most of the times, they find entities that are actually malicious. They find it to be true positives. And now they're like, hey, why don't I add it to my TI so that ever in the future, if I'm under attack from this IP or a domain, I will have incidents raised within Sentinel because of the TI map rules I showed you before a couple of minutes back. So what we did in this case is, up until now, what an analyst will have to do is they'll have to copy this TI, this indicator, go back to the TI blade and create a new indicator. So now what you can essentially do is you don't have to go through that painful process of context switching. What we do is we allow you to just add to your TI, which opens the new indicator pane in the same context. We kind of fill most of the things, most of the required fields. You can add a confidence. Obviously, you'll have to say, I know this is valid from, say, 1st of November. You add the valid from date and you say apply. That's it. You don't have to switch your context. the indicator gets added to the TI blade. It's part of your TI LA table, and you can just continue your investigation right there. So without any context switching.
Beautiful, beautiful.
So, Rijuta, this is definitely great here when it comes to having that investigation graph and learning more about the different entities part of that incident, and more importantly, the threat intel insights. Can you talk a bit more about how can we actually visualize these different feeds? Do we have a workbook or any sort of dashboard that can help us out when it comes to understanding, what are the different feeds that are actually triggering incidents?
Absolutely. So as you said, workbooks, right? Very, very powerful tool to visualize within Sentinel again. So we do provide a threat intelligence workbook out of the box for our customers. And what this workbook essentially does is it shows you how your TI is performing within Sentinel. So it shows you charts around what TI you've brought into Sentinel, sliced by the type of the TI, whether how many IP indicators, how many domains, how many URLs you've brought in, and also sliced by various, sources, etc. One of the tables I really want to talk about in this is the uniqueness. One of the challenge that I've kind of heard from a lot of customers is, there's so many sources of TI out in the world. There's so many vendors. How do I prioritize which TI is better over the other? So one of the things that, we kind of heard that feedback from our customers and did was we tried to include this chart called uniqueness. So any TI that you bring in, any TI from various sources that you bring in into Sentinel, we analyze and see what is the uniqueness. Say you might be bringing it from 5 different sources, but your end goal essentially is that you want to have the least overlap of indicators, because you don't want to know that 1.1.1.1 is malicious from 5 different sources. If you know it from one source, you're still getting the value, right? So this chart essentially shows that what is the uniqueness percentage of each of the fields that you're importing into Sentinel. So definitely recommend folks to try this out. And then the other tab of this shows really how your TI is actually paying you value. So this essentially shows how many alerts are being created within Sentinel with your TI data. What are all those alerts? What are the TI types, etc. So essentially shows the number of incidents and alerts that are raised out of your TI data within Sentinel. So this does help a lot, especially to, the SOC analysts, especially to the SOC leads, to, understand how, is their TI even giving value to them?
That's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah, we definitely find that customers that they bring in a big load of threat intel feeds into their SIM, but they don't really find value out of it. This is definitely one of the greatest ways to actually find out.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Rijuta, for all this great demo and great content around threat intelligence in Sentinel. Can you share with us a little bit about what is next, what is coming to threat intelligence in the future?
Absolutely. There's a lot coming in terms of, TI in Sentinel. This is one of the areas where the product group is investing heavily. I cannot obviously disclose everything, but some of the things that I can talk about, is one of the areas where we are trying to invest heavily is threat intelligence management. We've brought in all this TI. One of the important things with TI is you need to keep them up to date and manage them well, right? And a lot of times, as Javier, you asked me earlier, can you edit TI? I did show you how we can edit TI one indicator at a time. We're going to invest heavily in the areas where you can, bulk manage your TI, bulk edit, bulk delete your TI. And some of the other areas is, how we saw that we can easily add TI within, from the investigation view. We're going to provide similar experiences in other areas of the product, like hunting sessions and incidents, and even show insights from TI within an incident view, so that if you want to see if an entity if you know anything about an entity in TI, you would be able to look at those things, which again, kind of goes back to my previous point of no context switching, reduction in mean time to respond, which are really, really important for a SOC team right now.
All right. Thank you, Rijuta, for the great demonstration, the great comprehensive talk when it comes to threat intel and how important it is when it comes to Sentinel. Javier, as always, thank you. Rijuta, any final words for the audience?
The only final words I have is, take the bet, start using TI features in Sentinel. I think they're going to give a lot of value to you and your organization and your SOC members. So that would be my final thought. And thank you so much, Chris and Javier, for the opportunity. It was really nice being part of this.
Excellent.
Thank you, Rijuta.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.